In previous videos in this series, we have looked at basic editing of the impulse response files, as well as looking at editing various envelope curves to tweak the volume, panning, and stereo separation over time. In this video, we're going to have a look at some of the more common FL Studio processes that can be applied to your impulse response file. The first process we'll look at is the Convolution Reverb tool. This tool will allow you to apply a convolution reverb to the impulse response, which would result in a stronger, more dominant effect. After selecting the tool from the spectral section of the Tools menu, the Reverb Settings dialog will appear. From here, you have the basic parameters that control the character of the reverb. Using the Preview button, you can audition the changes made to these parameters. The Delay parameter will delay the effect of the start position of the reverb. The Dry parameter, of course, controls the amount of dry or unaffected audio in the mix. The Wet parameter will control the amount of wet or affected audio in the mix. The convolution reverb works pretty much in the same manner as Convolver itself, using an impulse response to generate the emulated space. You can select your impulse response file by clicking on the impulse response title. Upon doing so, a file open dialog will appear where you can navigate to your desired impulse response file. Along the top of the spectrum window is the scroller that can be used to quickly zoom in and out. And below the spectrum window are the envelope editor selector icons, allowing you to edit the envelopes in the same way that we just looked at in the previous video. For more on working with the envelope editors, please refer back to video 7 of this series. Once you have the reverb sounding the way you like, click on the Accept button or close the dialog window to exit without applying the reverb to the impulse response file. The next tool is the Blur tool. This is another common tool found throughout FL Studio. Here, we can use it to blur the sound of our impulse response if we wish to soften it up a bit. After selecting the tool from the Spectrum section of the Tools menu, the Blur tool dialog will appear. You can adjust the amount of blur that is applied to the impulse response. Use the Delay parameter to adjust the start time of the blur effect. And use the Mix to control the balance between the affected and unaffected audio. Next, use the Envelope to adjust the shape of the blur over time. This envelope works much in the same fashion as the envelopes we looked at in the last video. Again, to apply the changes, simply click on Accept or close the window to leave without applying the changes from the Blur tool. The last processing tool we'll look at in the Spectrum section is the Equalized tool, and like the previous tools, selecting it from the menu will open the Equalize dialog box. This tool, as I am sure you have guessed by the name, is an equalizer. However, unlike most traditional EQs, this tool uses a curve, very much like the ones found to control the amplitude and panning over time within Convolver and FL Studio. By adjusting the anchor points, you are either applying a gain or reduction to the frequencies around the said anchor point. As you can guess, changes made to the left side will affect the lower frequencies, and changes made to the right will affect the higher range frequencies. And as we looked at in the previous videos, you can add anchor points and adjust the tension handle type and shape to build a custom EQ curve. So, in this video, we looked at using the common processing tools that are found throughout FL Studio and how they can be applied to your impulse response file. In the next video, we'll have a look at the Convolver's EQ section, which, unlike the EQ we looked at in this video, it performs its processing in real time.